My name is Lena Hart, and I am 32 years old. I am a senior data analyst at a large logistics and supply firm, which is a polished way of saying I spend most of my life wrestling numbers until they confess. I like order. I like patterns. I like things that can be checked, verified, proven. For a long time, I believed love belonged in a different category, messier, softer, not measurable. That was my first mistake. My boyfriend, Nolan, is 29. We had been together for 4 years, and for most of that time, I thought we were building something solid. We lived in my condo, the one I bought before I met him, back when every hard decision in my life was mine alone. 2 years into our relationship, when he was stuck in a job he hated and constantly talking about wanting something bigger, I helped him get a role in our company's marketing department. I did not pull strings in any dirty way. I made an introduction, vouched for his work ethic, and gave him access to an opportunity he would not have had otherwise. He got in on his own talent. At least that is what I told myself. He was good at being grateful in the beginning, good at making me feel like we were a team. He would show up at my office door at lunch with a coffee in one hand and some ridiculous little pastry in the other, and grin like I was still the best part of his day. Then, slowly, that version of him started disappearing. The first thing that changed was his attention. Not all at once, not enough that I could point to one single moment and say, there. That was the shift. It happened in pieces. He started checking his phone while I was talking, started coming home later, started answering simple questions with work stress, vague exhaustion, and a kiss on my forehead that felt more dismissive than affectionate. We worked on the same corporate campus, but not in the same department. I reported through analytics. Nolan worked under marketing. Both departments, however, sat under one woman. Vanessa Vale, 45, head of analytics, acting overseer for marketing, married, 2 children. The kind of woman who always looked perfectly assembled, as if she had been polished before stepping into public. Tailored suits, low heels, a voice so calm it made people lean in. She had that polished executive life people at the office described, with a strange mix of envy and admiration. She was also my direct boss. And, because this universe has a cruel sense of symmetry, she was effectively Nolan's boss's boss too. For the past 2 months, Nolan had been saying the same thing every week. This launch is insane. We're all drowning. Vanessa wants revisions. Vanessa is pushing hard. Vanessa says this campaign could change everything for me. He talked about Vanessa too much. And Vanessa, in return, had started acting too familiar with me. Not enough to file a complaint. Not enough to call out publicly. Just enough to leave a residue on every interaction. You are lucky, Lena, she told me one morning by the coffee machine, smiling as she rested a hand on my shoulder a beat too long. Nolan is ambitious, hungry. That kind of energy is rare. I remember forcing a small smile. I remember how her eyes stayed on my face a little too long. I remember the way something cold and quiet moved through me, then passed because I did what women are trained to do too often. I explained it away. I made it smaller. I called myself paranoid. That was my second mistake. Last Thursday started like any other bad day trying to disguise itself as normal. I came home tired, kicked off my shoes by the door, changed into one of Nolan's old college shirts that had somehow become mine. The condo was too quiet. It had been feeling that way a lot lately, even when he was physically inside it, like something had already left before the body followed. At 7:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. Nolan, still at the office. This deck is a disaster, and Vanessa is making us stay until it is right. Don't wait up. Order something good. Love you. I stared at the message for a second longer than I should have. Then I typed back exactly what a trusting girlfriend would type back. Ugh, that sucks. Good luck. No problem. Love you too. No accusation, no friction, no hint that I was tired of hearing Vanessa's name in my kitchen, in my car, in my bed. I ordered food, changed into sweats, tried to distract myself with television I did not care about. Around 9:30, while waiting for the delivery app to update, I opened Instagram without thinking. That was all it took. A story circle glowed at the top of the screen. Jenna Mercer, one of Nolan's marketing friends. The caption on the first clip read Girls' Night, with too many laughing emojis and a shaky burst of neon light from a bar I did not recognize. Jenna was filming herself and another friend, both half yelling over music, cocktails lifted toward the camera. My stomach tightened. Girls' night. I watched the next story, then the next, and then everything in my life split cleanly into before and after. The camera panned lazily across a curved booth in the back of the bar, a dim corner, blue light, someone's laughter in the background. Jenna probably did not even realize what she caught. But I saw it instantly. Nolan was there. His hand was at Vanessa's waist. Vanessa's mouth was on his. Not close, not ambiguous, not something that could be explained away by angle or timing or alcohol or bad luck. They were kissing with the kind of familiarity that only exists after lines have already been crossed many times before. For one strange second, I felt absolutely nothing. No screaming, no tears, no dramatic collapse. Just cold. A complete and terrifying kind of cold. I replayed it. 10 seconds. That was all it was. 10 seconds of grainy light and enough truth to burn down every lie I had been politely stepping around for months. He had not been working late. He had lied to me. He had cheated on me. And the person he cheated with was my married boss, the woman who signed my reviews, controlled my department, and had spent weeks smiling in my face while touching my shoulder like we were all sharing some private joke. This was not just betrayal. This was contamination. Personal, professional, intimate, structural. I screen recorded the story immediately, saved the video, emailed it to my personal account, uploaded it to my private cloud. Then I sat very still on my sofa, phone in hand, while my untouched dinner cooled on the coffee table. I opened Nolan's chat again. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Then I sent 2 words. No problem. This time I meant them differently. This time it was not reassurance. It was recognition. I set my phone down and opened my work laptop. The company handbook loaded in seconds. I went straight to the conduct policy. Conflict of interest, fraternization, abuse of managerial authority. Relationships between supervisors and employees within their direct or indirect chain of command were explicitly prohibited. The wording was clinical, polished, exact. I read every line once, then again. By the time I opened a new email to legal and HR, my hands had stopped shaking. The subject line came easily. Urgent, inappropriate relationship, conflict of interest, and hostile work. Environment concern. Everything after that felt less like writing and more like building a case against the version of my life that had existed an hour earlier. I addressed it to Brenda Hale in Human Resources and Stephen Mercer in Legal. I blind copied my personal email without hesitation. If the last 10 minutes had taught me anything, it was that trust without documentation was just another form of self-sabotage. Then I began. Dear Brenda and Stephen, it is with deep regret that I am reporting what appears to be a serious violation of company policy. Tonight, I obtained time-stamped video evidence showing an intimate personal relationship between my direct supervisor, Vanessa Vale, and my boyfriend, Nolan Reed, who is employed in the marketing department. As Vanessa oversees both analytics and marketing operations, this places Nolan within her indirect chain of command and creates a clear conflict of interest. I attached the screenshot of Nolan's message about working late. I attached the screen recording from Jenna's story. I kept going. Their ongoing dishonesty regarding after-hours work obligations, combined with the relationship shown in the attached video, creates an untenable professional situation for me and raises serious questions about workplace favoritism, abuse of authority, and retaliation risk. I am deeply concerned about my professional standing and my ability to continue working safely and objectively under these conditions. Please advise regarding next steps. Pending guidance. I intend to work remotely tomorrow. Sincerely, Lena Hart, Senior Data Analyst. I read it through twice. No emotion, no dramatics, no language I would later regret. Just facts. Just data. Just the kind of clean, brutal truth I had built my career on. At 9:54 p.m., I had then saw my madam. The sound of that email leaving my outbox was so small. Barely anything. A soft digital whoosh. But it felt like the first crack in a wall that had already been rotting from the inside. After that, the condo became too quiet. I turned off the television, turned off the kitchen light, sat in the dark with my phone face down beside me, and the city glowing faintly through the windows. My food sat untouched until it went cold. I think I tried one bite. I do not remember swallowing it. What I remember is the silence inside me. Not peace, not numbness. Something colder than either of those. A kind of internal evacuation. Every soft memory I had of Nolan started replaying in reverse, stripped of warmth. Him laughing against my neck while we unpacked boxes in this condo. Him standing in my kitchen at midnight eating cereal from the box. Him saying I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Him asking if I thought he should wear the navy shirt or the gray one for his first day at the company. All of it looked different now. Not fake exactly. That would have been easier. The harder truth was that some of it had probably been real once, until ambition and vanity and appetite got involved, until he got attention from the wrong person and started mistaking it for power. I did not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while every small sound in the building became sharper than it should have been. Pipes, elevator hum, a neighbor's footsteps in the hall. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, I got up and made coffee I did not need. Around 4, I took a shower just to do something that had a beginning and an end. At 6, I changed into clean clothes as if I were bracing for impact. At 8:01 a.m., the first email came. From Brenda. Lena, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We are treating the matter with utmost seriousness. Please work remotely today as requested. I will call you at 10 a.m. Be available. That was it. No reassurance, no specifics, no promises. But it was enough for me to know the message had landed exactly where it needed to. I spent the next hour at my kitchen counter with black coffee and a legal pad, writing down every detail I could remember from the past 2 months. Late nights, Vanessa's comments, Nolan's sudden mood shifts, specific dates tied to product launch deadlines, casual remarks that had felt off at the time but now snapped into place with almost violent clarity. Patterns. That was the thing about betrayal. Once the key appeared, every locked door opened at once. At 9:43 a.m., my personal phone started vibrating across the countertop. Nolan. I watched his name flash. Then again, and again. By the 4th call, I was not surprised anymore. By the 8th, I almost laughed. By the 12th, Vanessa's name appeared too. That, somehow, was the most satisfying part. Not because I am cruel, because panic has a sound, even when it comes through a phone screen, and both of them were making it loudly. Then the text began. Nolan. Lena, what did you do? Nolan. They shut off my laptop access. Nolan. My email is gone. Nolan. Call me right now. Vanessa. Lena. I strongly advise you to speak with me before this escalates any further. Vanessa. This is a misunderstanding. Vanessa. You have made a reckless decision. I stared at that one for a long moment. A reckless decision. As if I was the one making out with someone else in a bar while lying about work. As if truth itself was the misconduct. Another text from Nolan came in almost immediately after. Nolan. They fired me. And there it was. No formal explanation from me required. No confrontation needed. No begging for honesty. The consequences had already started arriving. A few seconds later, my building buzzer sounded. Once. Twice. Then continuously, like whoever was downstairs had planted a finger on it and decided volume could substitute for innocence. I walked to the intercom but did not answer. Instead, I moved to the peephole and looked out into the hallway. Nolan was standing outside my door. He still looked like last night had never ended. Same clothes, same jacket, same rumpled attempt at looking polished. But now he was unraveling visibly. His hair was messy, his face was pale, his whole body had that twitchy, chaotic energy of someone whose carefully managed story had collapsed before breakfast. He pounded once against the door. Then again. Lena, he shouted. I know you're in there. I said nothing. My work phone rang at exactly 10 a.m. Brenda. I took the call while Nolan kept knocking. Lena, she said, her voice smooth but tight. Are you somewhere private? Yes. I moved farther into the condo, away from the door, though his voice still carried through the hall like a stain. After a brief pause, she continued. Following an internal review conducted this morning, the company has terminated both Vanessa Vale and Nolan Reed effective immediately for serious violations of company policy and conduct standards. I closed my eyes, not in grief, just in acknowledgement. It was real now, official, irreversible. Brenda kept speaking, careful and polished. There will be no expectation that you report to the office until we determine the appropriate transition plan. We take your concerns seriously, and we are reviewing whether any of Vanessa's prior managerial decisions require additional scrutiny. In the hallway, Nolan hit the door with the flat of his hand. Lena! Brenda paused. Is everything all right on your end? My now ex-boyfriend is outside my apartment, I said evenly. He appears to be very upset. A beat of silence. Oh, she said quietly. Would you like me to contact building security or local authorities? No, I said. Not yet. I think I can handle this. I ended the call and stood there for a moment with the phone still in my hand. Then another message came through. From Nolan. An email forward. The subject line hit me first. Urgent final pay and employment termination notice. So that was his strategy. Not apology, not explanation. Proof of damage, as if being injured by consequences erased the choice that caused them. I opened it. The email was short, formal, airtight. Effective immediately. Violation of company policy. Access revoked. Final paycheck to follow according to state law. I read it once and locked my phone. Then I walked to the door. For 1 second, my hand rested on the handle, and I let myself feel exactly one thing. Not heartbreak. That had already been burned out of me. What I felt was disappointment so deep it had become almost elegant. The kind that leaves no mess because it has already frozen solid. Then I opened the door. Nolan looked wrecked. His eyes were red. His jaw kept clenching and unclenching like he could not decide whether to cry, beg, or lie first. He smelled faintly of stale cologne, cold night air, and fear. "You," he said, his voice cracking. "You ruined me." The words hung there between us. I leaned one shoulder against the doorframe and looked at him as if he were a stranger asking for directions. "No," I said, "you ruined yourself." His face twisted. "It was a mistake." "Was it?" "Yes." He stepped forward half an inch, desperate already. "Lena, please. It was not what it looked like." I almost admired the instinct. Even now, even with the evidence, even after the termination email, still trying language first, still hoping words could disinfect a fact. I held his gaze. "You lied to me for months," I said. "You lied last night. You kissed my boss in a bar and told me you were working late." His mouth opened, then closed. "That was not." "You also dragged my career into it," I said, cutting across him. "Do you understand that part? Or were you too busy trying to sleep your way upward to think it through?" He flinched. "Good." For the first time since I had opened the Instagram story, I wanted him to feel even a fraction of the humiliation he had handed me so casually. "Lena, please," he said again, softer this time. "Vanessa said this was private. She said nobody would get hurt." I let out a short, sharp laugh that did not sound like mine. "Nobody?" He looked down. That told me more than anything else could have. This was not sudden, not accidental, not one drunken lapse. This had been discussed, managed, protected. I felt something inside me settle into place. "How long?" I asked. He did not answer. "How long, Nolan?" His silence was answer enough. The hallway was still. The whole building felt like it was holding its breath with us. Then I said the one thing he clearly had not prepared for. "You have 1 hour." His head jerked up. "What?" "1 hour to pack a bag, essentials only." His expression shifted from pleading to stunned outrage. "Lena, I live here." "No," I said, "I let you stay here." That landed. I saw it in his face immediately. The realization that the floor under his life was not his floor. That the walls he had moved through casually for years were mine. That the security he had treated like background scenery belonged to the woman he had just betrayed with staggering stupidity. He stared at me. I stared back. And for the first time since this began, I saw fear replace entitlement in his eyes. Fear changed him faster than guilt ever could. It was there in the way his shoulders dropped, in the way he looked past me into the condo, as if the rooms themselves might rescue him, in the way he opened his mouth twice before any sound came out, like his body had finally realized the script he had been relying on was gone. "You can't be serious." I have never been more serious in my life. His face hardened for a second, a reflex more than real courage. "You can't just throw me out because you're angry." "This is not anger." That made him blink. Because anger, he understood. Anger was loud. Anger could be argued with, dodged, manipulated. Anger burned hot and then exhausted itself. What he was standing in front of now was colder than that. It did not need performance. It did not need witnesses. It did not need him to agree. It was a decision. He glanced down the hall, maybe checking whether any neighbors were listening, then lowered his voice. "Lena, please do not do this right now. Let me come inside. Let me explain." "You can explain while you pack." His jaw tightened. "This is insane." "No," I said quietly. "What was insane was sleeping with my boss and assuming I would protect you from the consequences." He looked like I had slapped him. Maybe in some way I had. For 4 years, I had been the softer surface in this relationship, the one who made room, the one who absorbed stress, the one who chose peace over pettiness, understanding over suspicion, patience over pride. Men like Nolan always mistake that for weakness. They think because a woman is kind, she will stay kind under impact. He was learning otherwise. "Lena," he said, trying again, gentler now, careful. "I know how this looks." I laughed once, not because it was funny, because it was almost impressive how committed he was to insulting my intelligence. "You know what?" I said. "You're right. It does look bad. It looks like you lied to me, cheated on me, jeopardized my career, humiliated me, and then got fired because HR could read a policy manual." His eyes flashed. "You didn't have to send that email." There it was, the part that mattered to him. Not what he had done. not what it had cost me, not the months of deception. The email. The fact that I had not stayed in my assigned role as the injured woman who cries privately and helps clean up the damage someone else caused. I did, I said. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once in front of my door, like movement might help him manufacture control. You could have handled this between us. I stared at him. Between us? You know what I mean. No, I said. Actually, I don't. Explain it. He hesitated, which told me he understood the trap and walked into it anyway. I mean, you didn't have to make it a work thing. I folded my arms. You made it a work thing the second you got involved with the woman who controlled both our departments. It wasn't like that. How was it then? Silence. A long one. The kind that says the truth is nearby, but unwelcome. I stepped back from the doorway and pulled the door open wider. You have 56 minutes now. He stared at me. You're really doing this? Yes. He walked inside like someone entering a house after a funeral. Same furniture, same light coming through the windows, same framed prints on the wall and books on the shelves and throw blanket folded over the corner of the sofa. But the air had changed. He felt it. I could see that he felt it. This was no longer home to him. It was evidence. He turned slowly at the middle of the living room. So that's it? 4 years and you're just done? No, I said. You were done before I knew it. I'm just the last person here to acknowledge it. He flinched again. I think part of him had expected tears at some point. A crack, a plea, some softer emotional opening he could crawl through and turn into negotiation. But every time he looked at me, all he found was the woman he should have remembered I was from the beginning. Measured, observant, hard to fool once the pattern revealed itself. He disappeared into the bedroom, and a few seconds later I heard drawers opening too hard, hangers knocking together, a suitcase being yanked from the closet. I stayed in the living room and opened the Notes app on my phone. Not because I needed a distraction, because I knew this was not over. A man who cheats with his girlfriend's boss and then shows up blaming her for his firing is not a man who suddenly discovers humility in one morning. Nolan was not packing because he accepted responsibility. He was packing because he did not yet have leverage. That would change the second he found some. I started making a list. Change building access code. Remove him from delivery accounts. Separate streaming services. Change passwords. Forward mail. Notify front desk. Practical things. Small things. The architecture of aftermath. From the bedroom, I heard a drawer slam. Then his voice. Are you seriously just sitting out there while I pack? Yes. That's cold. I looked toward the hallway. You should be grateful I'm being efficient. He stepped back into view, holding a half-zipped duffel bag, cheeks flushed. You think you're better than me. No, I said. I think I'm more honest than you. He scoffed. You always do this. Do what? Act like everything is a spreadsheet, like people are variables, like you can sort them into categories and delete the ones that disappoint you. That almost got a reaction out of me, not because it hurt, but because it was revealing. He had spent years quietly resenting the very traits that built the life he enjoyed living in. My stability, my discipline, my ability to function without chaos. He loved the comfort those things created, but not the fact that they came from me. Interesting. I tucked that away too. No, I said. I remove the things that become liabilities. His face went dark. For a second, I saw something raw and ugly flash there. Not heartbreak, not remorse. Wounded ego, the special fury of a person who never believed they would be the one escorted out. He laughed bitterly. You know what? Fine. Maybe I made a mistake, but you wanted this. You wanted to feel superior. That one landed closer, not because it was true, but because it was so predictably cruel. When some people lose access to your affection, they immediately try to poison your identity. If they cannot make themselves innocent, they will try to make you monstrous. I looked at him and said nothing. Silence is devastating when someone wants you defensive. He shifted first. Vanessa said you'd react like this? That got my attention. I kept my face still. Did she? Nolan swallowed. Wrong move, too late. He realized immediately he had said more than he meant to. I stood up slowly from the sofa. Tell me exactly what Vanessa said. Nothing. You just quoted her. I didn't quote her. You invoked her. Same difference. He looked away. I took one step closer. Not aggressive, just enough to make evasion harder. How long has she known you were using me as cover? He didn't. He stopped himself. She didn't. That told me even more. You do not get to stand in my condo, I said, my voice sharpening for the first time all morning. After lying to me for months, after humiliating me with my own boss, and then decide which questions are uncomfortable for you. If Vanessa has been discussing me with you, I want to know." He stared at the floor, then past me, then finally at my face. "She said you were intense." I let that sit. "She said you notice everything. She said if you ever found out, you wouldn't scream. You'd go after what mattered." A strange calm moved through me. Not because I was surprised, because hearing it confirmed something uglier than cheating. They had strategized around me, assessed me, predicted me, talked about my reactions like I was a weather system they needed to prepare for before going out to have fun in the storm. I nodded once. "Anything else?" He hesitated. "That meant yes. Nolan, she said you care too much about how you're perceived professionally to make a scene." That one almost made me smile. Vanessa had been close. She had just misunderstood the conclusion. I do care about how I am perceived professionally. That is exactly why I documented everything and sent it to legal instead of smashing plates. I looked at Nolan for a long moment and understood, finally, the scale of the disrespect. Not just sexual betrayal. Not just dishonesty, contempt. The kind that grows when two people start bonding through what they assume a third person will never know. "Thank you," I said. He frowned. "For what?" "For clarifying." He looked unsettled by that. "Good." He went back into the bedroom. More noise. Closet doors. Zippers. The bathroom cabinet opening. When he returned, he had overpacked out of panic. One suitcase and one duffel, both bulging badly enough to show he had not thought through what essentials actually were. He set them by the front door and looked around the condo one last time. Then came the next phase. "You can't do this legally, you know." I almost smiled. There it was. The entitlement had changed clothes, but it had not left. "I can. I've been living here for 2 years. As my guest." "That's not how it works. It is when the property is in my name, the mortgage is in my name, the utilities are in my name, and there is no lease with yours on it." He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "I'll call the police." "Go ahead." He stared at me, waiting for fear. He found none. "Tell them your girlfriend is removing you from her condo because you cheated on her with her boss, and both of you were terminated this morning. I'm sure that conversation will go beautifully." His face flushed deep red. Then, as if on cue, he pulled out his phone and made the call I had been expecting all along. Not the police. His mother. He turned half away from me as she answered, but his voice was loud enough that I heard plenty. "Mom!" A pause. "No-os?" "No, everything is not fine." Another pause, then louder, brittle with humiliation. "She's kicking me out." I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. From across the room, I heard fragments. "No, No, it's not like that." Then, it was a misunderstanding. Then, after whatever his mother said next, "No, I do not have anywhere else to go right now." Pathetic is not always a kind word, but it was the accurate one. He lowered his voice after that, though not enough to hide the panic. He kept glancing toward me like I might soften if I saw him crumbling in real time. I did not. When he ended the call, he looked smaller. "Jenna said I can stay there for a few nights," he muttered. The irony is almost elegant. He glared at me. "You do not have to be cruel." I set the glass down. "You still think this is about cruelty. That's your problem." I walked to the front door and opened it. The hallway stretched out quiet and bright beyond us. Time to go. He stood still for a second too long, maybe waiting for one last reversal, one last flicker of the woman who would stop him and ask him not to leave like this. There was no such woman left in the room. As he rolled the suitcase past me, he stopped at the threshold and looked back. "You'll regret this." "No," I said, "I'll recover from it." That hit harder than anything else I had said. I saw it happen. Because regret would have kept us connected. Regret implies longing, doubt, a tether. But recovery is a door that closes behind you. He lifted the duffel over his shoulder. His eyes were bright now, furious in that helpless way men often are when consequences finally arrive with their full name and exact address. "You're a monster," he said. I met his gaze. "I'm a data analyst," I said. "I just presented the facts. You supplied the worst possible interpretation." He looked like he wanted to say something else, something final and cutting and memorable. Instead, he left. The suitcase wheels rattled harshly over the hallway floor. The elevator at the end of the corridor dinged. The doors opened, closed. Silence returned in layers. I shut the door, and the first thing I felt was not relief. It was emptiness. Not because I wanted him back. Because grief is strange that way. Even when someone has betrayed you beyond repair, your body still has habits your mind has not yet caught up to. It still expects certain sounds, certain rhythms, a second toothbrush, a familiar voice asking if you want coffee. the weight of another person moving through rooms built around your routines. I stood in the middle of my living room and let the quiet settle over me. Then I noticed one of my framed prints had shifted crooked on the wall, probably from how hard he slammed the suitcase against the console near the door. I walked over and straightened it. A tiny thing, but symbolic enough to make me stop and breathe. That was what this would be now, I thought. 1,000 small corrections. A week later, my life no longer resembled anything I had been living before. Not in the dramatic, cinematic way people imagine when they talk about betrayal and fallout. There were no slow-motion victories, no satisfying monologues, no clean emotional arcs. Just logistics, paperwork, silence where noise used to be, and a constant low-level awareness that something unfinished was circling back. The company moved fast. Faster than I expected. By Monday morning, there was a vague internal email announcing that Vanessa Vale had stepped down to pursue other opportunities. No details, no scandal, just corporate language doing what it does best, burying something explosive under a layer of polite ambiguity. Nolan's name did not appear at all. He vanished from the directory like he had never existed. My inbox, however, told a different story. Colleagues reached out carefully, indirectly. Hey, heard things are changing upstairs. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. No one asked directly, but everyone knew. That is another thing about offices. Information moves like smoke. You might not see the fire, but you can smell it everywhere. HR scheduled multiple follow-ups with me, each one more formal than the last. Documentation, statements, clarifications. They treated me like both a witness and a liability, which, to be fair, I was. Your professionalism has been noted, Brenda told me during one call. I almost laughed. Professionalism. That was the word they chose for what had essentially been me detonating a truth in the middle of two departments. Still, I understood the game. They were protecting the company. And for now, my interests happened to align with that. But outside of work, the situation refused to stay contained. It started with messages, not apologies, not accountability, demands. Nolan, I can't make my car payment this month. Nolan, this is because of you. Nolan, I need $5,000. I stared at the number for a long time. $5,000. He did not ask. He stated it like an invoice. Another message followed immediately. Nolan, you owe me for what you did. That one almost impressed me. The speed with which he reframed himself as the victim. The confidence. The entitlement. I screenshotted everything. Sent it to my personal email. Filed it in a folder labeled documentation. Then I did not reply. That silence lasted exactly 6 hours before the tone changed. Nolan, if you don't help me, I will tell people how you treated me. Nolan, you think HR only listens to you? Nolan, I can make this messy for you too. I read those slowly. Not because they scared me, because they clarified something important. This was no longer about regret. This was about leverage. I added those messages to the same folder. Still no reply. That was the pattern now. He escalated. I documented. He pushed. I preserved. And somewhere in that exchange, the emotional thread between us finally snapped completely. Whatever lingering human instinct might have made me soften earlier was gone. In its place was something cleaner. Distance. But Nolan was not the only one who decided to reach out. 2 days later, I received a message on Facebook from a man I did not know. His name was Gregory Vale, Vanessa's husband. I stared at the notification for a full minute before opening it. The message was long. Too long. It started with accusation. You did this. It moved into denial. My wife is a good woman, a good mother. She would never risk everything for something like that. Then it shifted into something uglier. Your boyfriend, Nolan, has been throwing himself at her for months. I saw the way he acted at company events, the way he hovered around her, the way he looked at her. You should have controlled your boyfriend better. I leaned back in my chair. There it was. The narrative he needed. If Vanessa was a victim, then someone had to be the predator. And if Nolan could be framed as reckless, impulsive, naive, then Vanessa could still be respectable. He kept going. You need to fix this. That line stood out. Not ask. Not discuss. Fix. Call HR. Tell them the video was fake. Tell them it was taken out of context. Say it was a misunderstanding. You owe my family that after what you've done. I read that part twice. Then once more. My thumb hovered over the keyboard for a second. Then I typed exactly what needed to be said. Gregory, I am sorry for your situation, but I will not lie to my company. Your wife made her own decisions. Please do not contact me again. I sent it. Blocked him immediately after. That should have been the end of it. It was not. The next escalation did not come through a screen. It came to my door. Friday afternoon. A man in a cheap suit holding a thick envelope like it weighed more than paper should. Lena Hart, he asked. Yes, you've been served. The words landed heavier than anything Nolan or Gregory had said, because this was not emotional anymore. This was legal. I took the envelope, closed the door, set it on the table, and for a moment I did not open it. Not out of fear, out of recognition. Once I read whatever was inside, the situation would shift again. There would be no going back to simple aftermath, no quiet cleanup. This was escalation. Deliberate. Calculated. I opened it. The first page confirmed everything. Vanessa Vale was suing me. $250,000. The claims: defamation, slander, tortious interference with contract. I sat down slowly. Read further. Her argument was exactly what someone like her would construct. That I was a disgruntled employee. That I had fabricated the video. That I had maliciously altered footage of what was, according to her, a friendly, professional interaction during a team-related outing. That I had acted out of jealousy. That I had intended to destroy her career. I felt something shift in my chest. Not panic. Not yet. Something sharper. Something colder. Strategy. Then I reached the final page. The attachment. A sworn affidavit. From Nolan. I read his name. Then I read his words. He claimed I was controlling. That I monitored him. That I had threatened him. That the relationship between him and Vanessa was purely professional. That the video was suspicious. That he believed I had manipulated it. I read it twice. Then I set the papers down very carefully. Because now I understood. This was not desperation anymore. This was alignment. They had chosen each other. Again. Not romantically, in the way that mattered to the lawsuit. Strategically. Two people who had already destroyed their own positions had decided the only way forward was to destroy mine too. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city. For the first time since all of this began, I felt it. Fear. Not the emotional kind. The practical kind. Vanessa had money. Connections. Lawyers who did not blink at numbers like 250,000. I had truth. But truth on its own does not defend itself. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my contacts, found the number I needed, and pressed call. This is Lena Hart, I said when the line connected. I need a lawyer. The first thing my lawyer said to me was not comforting. This is not about truth anymore, she said, flipping through the lawsuit like she had seen 100 versions of it before. It's about what you can prove, what they can muddy, and how long they can afford to drag it out. Her name was Tessa Ward. Sharp eyes, controlled voice. The kind of woman who did not waste energy pretending things were better than they were. I liked her immediately. They're claiming the video is fake, I said. They're claiming it's altered, she corrected. Which is smarter, harder to disprove outright, easier to create doubt. I leaned back in the chair across from her desk. It's real. I believe you, she said calmly. But belief is not a legal strategy. That landed, because it was exactly the kind of sentence I would have said in my own field. Data over assumption. Evidence over confidence. Okay, I said, then we prove it. She nodded once, satisfied with that answer. Good, because they've already decided their strategy. She tapped the affidavit. Your ex has aligned with her. That's their foundation. Two consistent statements are harder to dismantle than one. Consistent lies? I said. Still consistent, she replied. I exhaled slowly. Then we break the consistency. Her lips curved slightly. Now we were speaking the same language. The next 4 months were not dramatic. They were exhausting. Every day was paperwork, calls, requests, documentation, deadlines, follow-ups, revisions, clarifications. It felt like being buried alive under a system designed to see who would suffocate first. Vanessa's legal team was exactly what I expected. Expensive, aggressive, relentless. They filed motions constantly, requested extensions, demanded records, tried to reframe timelines, tried to question my motives, tried to paint me as unstable, jealous, vindictive. It was not creative. It was volume. If they could not win cleanly, they would win by pressure. Tessa warned me early. She's trying to bleed you out, she said, financially and emotionally. If you fold, she doesn't have to prove anything. I won't fold, I said. But there were nights I understood exactly why people did. My savings dropped faster than I liked. My company placed me on paid administrative leave pending resolution, which sounded supportive but felt like being quietly boxed off. I was still employed, still protected, but also removed, isolated, untouchable in a different way. And Nolan disappeared publicly, but not completely. I learned through fragments, through indirect updates, through things that found their way back to me whether I wanted them to or not, that Vanessa was paying for his apartment, that they were still in contact, that he had not just lied once. He had committed to the lie, fully, irreversibly. The person I had lived with for 4 years was now sitting across from me in legal documents as a hostile witness. That realization took longer to settle than anything else. Not the cheating, not the lawsuit, that. Because betrayal you can process. But collaboration against you is something colder. Tessa did not let me sit in that feeling for long. "We go after the source," she said one afternoon, pushing a file toward me. "Jenna." I looked at the name, the Instagram story, the origin. "She posted it," Tessa continued, "which means she holds the key to everything. If the video is real, if the context is real, if the setting is real, then their entire case collapses. And if she backs them, she won't. You sound sure." Tessa gave me a look that almost counted as a smile. People lie for themselves. They lie for power. They lie for survival. They do not lie easily for someone else's lawsuit when perjury is on the table. That made sense. "Set it up," I said. The deposition was scheduled 2 weeks later, and for the first time since this began, I felt something shift. Not victory, not relief, momentum. Jenna did not look like someone who wanted to be there. She sat stiffly, hands folded too tightly in her lap, eyes flicking between the lawyers like she was trying to calculate which version of the truth would cost her the least. Vanessa's legal team went first. "Miss Mercer," the attorney began smoothly, "on the night in question, you were attending a company-related event, correct?" Jenna blinked. "No." A pause. "Could you clarify?" "It wasn't a company event," she said, voice smaller now. "It was just a girls' night." I felt Tessa go very still beside me. "Are you certain?" the attorney pressed. "Yes." "And Ms. Vale was present in a professional capacity?" "No." "How did she come to be there?" Jenna hesitated. Her eyes flicked, just briefly, toward Nolan. He was sitting at the far end of the room, watching her. That was his mistake, because she saw him. And whatever loyalty he thought he had, secured, broke. "She met us there," Jenna said. "Nolan invited her. He said they wanted to celebrate the campaign." Silence. Heavy. Irreversible. Vanessa's lawyer adjusted his posture. "Let's discuss the video you posted. Did you alter, edit, or manipulate that footage in any way?" Jenna's head shook immediately. "No." "Are you familiar with video editing software?" "No." "Did you create or participate in the creation of any deepfake content involving Ms. Vale or Mr. Reed?" "No," she said again, stronger this time. "I just filmed it. I didn't even realize what I caught until later." "Later?" "Lena texted me," she said quietly. Every eye in the room shifted just slightly. The timeline, locking into place. "And when you reviewed the footage?" Jenna swallowed. "They were kissing. No ambiguity. No room left. Just fact." Tessa leaned forward. "Miss Mercer, for the record, was the video you captured an accurate, unaltered representation of what occurred that night?" Jenna closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. "Yes." And just like that, the foundation cracked. But Tessa was not finished. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "we would like to introduce additional evidence." She slid a series of documents forward. First, additional social media content from the same evening, obtained through subpoena. A video appeared on the screen. Jenna again. Earlier that night. Laughing. Music loud. "When the boss buys, we celebrate," she shouted into the camera, panning toward Vanessa, who raised a glass and smiled at the camera. Vanessa's face went pale, but Tessa kept going. And finally, itemized transaction records from the Crimson Lounge. Another document. Time-stamped. 2 bottles of champagne, multiple cocktails. Total, $1,142.50, paid with a corporate card. At 9:45 p.m., the room shifted. Because now it was not just about an affair. Not just about lies. It was about fraud. Misuse of company funds. Perjury. Everything collapsing at once. I did not look at Nolan. I did not need to. I could feel it. The moment where certainty leaves someone's body. The moment where the story they built no longer holds. Tessa sat back slightly. "Your Honor," she said, "the plaintiff's claim relies entirely on this being a professional interaction at a sanctioned event. We have demonstrated that it was neither." Silence. Then movement. Vanessa's lawyer leaned toward her, whispering urgently. For the first time since this began, they looked unsure. And that was the beginning of the end. The collapse did not happen all at once. It never does. People imagine a single moment, a confession, a dramatic outburst, something clean and undeniable that signals the end. But in reality, collapse is quieter. It starts in the small fractures. A lawyer leaning in too quickly, a witness refusing to hold eye contact, a shift in tone that only matters if you know what confidence used to sound like. I saw it in Vanessa first, not in her words, in her stillness. She had built her entire defense on control, on authority, on the assumption that she could outlast, outspend, and outmaneuver me. Now that control was gone. Not completely, but enough. Her lawyer requested a recess. It was framed as procedural. It was not. It was survival. The judge granted it. The room emptied slowly, like something toxic had been released, and everyone needed distance before deciding how to react. I stayed seated. Tessa didn't look at me right away. She gathered her papers with the same calm precision she had shown from the beginning. No celebration. No visible satisfaction. Just completion of process. Then she leaned slightly toward me. "They're done," she said quietly. I exhaled. Not relief. "Not yet. Are you sure?" She gave me a small glance. They just admitted exposure on 3 separate fronts: the relationship, the context, the financial misuse, and their witness confirmed the video is real under oath. She paused. "They don't have a case anymore. What they have is damage control." That word settled differently. Damage control. Not truth, not justice. Just minimizing how much worse it could get. Across the room, Vanessa stood with her lawyer, shoulders tighter than I had ever seen them. Her face had lost that polished, composed edge she carried like armor. Without it, she looked older, smaller, like a woman who had spent too long believing she was untouchable. Nolan stood beside her, still, quiet. For the first time since I had known him, he looked exactly like what he was. Not charming, not ambitious. Just someone who made a decision and followed it until it broke him. Neither of them looked at me. They didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said had already been placed on record. Within an hour, the lawsuit was dropped. Just like that, $250,000. Gone. Not because they chose integrity, because they ran out of ground to stand on. Tessa did not hesitate. The second the withdrawal was filed, she moved. "We countersue," she said. "For?" "Malicious prosecution, defamation, full recovery of legal fees." Her tone didn't change, but there was something sharper under it now. "They tried to bury you," she added. "Now we invoice them for the attempt." I nodded. Not out of vengeance, out of balance, because consequences should not only flow in one direction. The settlement came faster than I expected. Vanessa did not fight it. She couldn't. Not after everything that had surfaced. Not after the receipts. Not after the video. Not after Jenna. She paid my full legal fees. $38,200. Every cent. And an additional $20,000 in damages. A number that felt less like compensation and more like punctuation. Final. Contained. Finished. But the real consequences were not financial. They never are. Vanessa's husband had been present in the courtroom. Gregory. I saw him when everything came out. The videos, the receipts, the testimony. I watched his face change. Not dramatically. Not with shouting or tears. Just a quiet, irreversible understanding settling in. The next day, he filed for divorce. I did not need to hear it from anyone. I already knew. People like Vanessa do not survive that kind of exposure intact. She lost her position. Her reputation. Her standing in an industry that thrives on trust and perception. No company wants a senior executive with a documented history of misconduct, fraud, and perjury. She was finished. And Nolan was never built to withstand consequences like this. He had tied himself to Vanessa's version of events completely. When that version collapsed, there was nothing left to hold him up. Jenna cut him off. Her entire friend group did the same. No one wants to stay close to someone who drags them into legal risk and lies under oath. Vanessa, dealing with her own fallout, stopped supporting him. And Nolan, for the first time in years, had to exist without someone else's structure holding him together. The last update I received about him came indirectly. He was working at a chain restaurant, living with his mother, starting over at a place he had spent years trying to escape. I did not feel satisfaction hearing that. Just distance. Complete and total distance. He tried to contact me once. New number. Short message. "Lena, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. She manipulated me. I have nothing left." I blocked it without replying. Because apologies that arrive after consequences are not apologies. They are negotiations. And I was no longer participating. As for me, the company brought me back after the case closed. Formally. Publicly. With more apology than I expected. There were conversations about restructuring. About leadership gaps. About how certain decisions moving forward would require people with demonstrated integrity. I understood what that meant. And what it didn't. I did not get Vanessa's job. That would have been too clean. Too symbolic. Real life does not tie things up that neatly. But I did get something better. A promotion. A raise. And something far more valuable than either. Clarity. The kind that only comes after something breaks completely and you are forced to rebuild without illusion. 4 months. That's what it cost. 4 months of stress, legal fees, isolation, watching people I once trusted turn into something unrecognizable. But in the end, I didn't win because I was smarter, or stronger, or more strategic. I won because I told the truth, documented it, and let them destroy themselves trying to escape it. People like Vanessa and Nolan do not fall because someone pushes them. They fall because they build their lives on things that cannot hold weight. All I did was stop pretending those structures were stable. I closed my laptop that night for the last time before taking leave. A real leave. No emails, no calls, no notifications. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere without signals. Because for the first time in a long time, there was nothing left to track. No loose ends. No unresolved variables. Just silence. Clean. Complete. And entirely mine.